Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's John Davis, the corporate action hero here, if you don't know me from my other work. And I am here today with two of my favorite people of all time. My friend Holly, who has been with me on a lot of my spiritual journey, and my cohort in crime, the lovely Tamara Zoner. But before we bring Holly in, let's first say hello to Tamara. Hello, Tamara. How are you?
Hello, John. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. I am excited about today's guest, and I know that you have just met her recently. But Holly is someone who has been with me a long time. And has seen a lot of the spiritual work with me. When I used to travel to metaphysical centers, Holly was the person who was traveling with me, and Holly used to sell the books and the CDs and do all that work and be there as we did that work. And it's interesting because Holly also is a very gifted healer herself as a Reiki healer. And the topic that I really wanted to delve in with the two of you today was the concept of healing at a distance. There's always the power of prayer. People pray for people and people get better or whatever. The concept of healing at a distance, or using healing power at a distance like that, to me is fascinating for me, because it's the measure of distance itself that fascinates me the most. But Holly is a animal Reiki healer, and she does her sessions all by distance, and has seen a lot of really amazing results from her work. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her into this conversation. Hi, Holly. How are you?
Hello there, my friend. I'm wonderful.
Oh, well, yes, you are. That's why you're here.
I am. We all know that.
That's exactly why you're here, young lady.
That's right.
Holly, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and about the work you're doing, and then we'll dive into the topic a little bit.
It's the long story condensed into an extremely brief snippet. After doing a lot of self-healing and exploration myself, I probably in my 30s started to kind of expand and began to understand about the unseen world, the spiritual world, the metaphysical world, and who I call God. I don't care what name you apply to that force.
Just so you know, the name is yada yada.
Yeah, we've decided on yada yada.
Well, and here comes my cat, so hopefully she won't knock anything off. So in the process, I realized that there was something more going on within me and for me than I had previously understood. And I'm guessing it was probably 20 years ago now that I began to explore the idea of psychic development for myself, and the idea of focusing healing power to benefit someone. Sorry, we're having an issue here. Sorry, the cat. Let me get her down. Go.
Cats are always an issue. It's okay.
Love her, but not now.
They have their own mind and they can do what they want. Heck with the rest of it.
That's right.
Yes, they do.
So I started to understand that I was connected, that I had more abilities than I gave myself credit for. And most importantly, for my own healing and my own work, I began to understand all the things that I wondered about myself made total sense. One, I don't like labels, but these labels helped me. I'm an empath, I'm an intuitive, I'm a sensitive, I'm extremely sensitive to energy. And all these things that caused me no end of heartache when I was young began to have a flip side. And I began to be able to sense what was going on in a room, who was safe, who was not, who was struggling, who was not, all these kinds of things. And that's when it all just kind of exploded. And it's like, this is a whole new world, literally. And it felt wonderful. It felt wonderful to identify myself in truth as an empathic, sensitive human being. And now I understand ways to heal myself and ways to heal others. As you said, I now heal animals. And I think that connection with nature and animals has been a big part of this healing process. So that's been fun. And there goes the cat again. So we'll see how this goes.
It'll be fine. If the cat wants to be here, the cat's allowed.
That's right. It's what we're talking about after all.
After all.
That's exactly right. So I know that having known you for as long as I've known you, Holly, and let's just face it, we've known each other longer than most people should. I've seen the spiritual growth in you from early on, and then I've seen the shift from going spiritual to your inner self, but also now taking it out,
right,
and doing that work as a healer and a teacher, and I've seen that kind of confidence shift in you during this process. Right. How was that?
Sorry,
okay.
I just knocked you over. This is not the most professional podcast ever, but that's
you're correct. It's not, so don't worry about it.
There you go. I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, everything in life is different for me now. Everything in life has meaning for me now. And I think my first exposure to the healing work was when I took quantum touch training, which is yet another modality of healing, probably 20 years ago. And that opened me up to possibilities and how you can turn the energy inward or outward. And it's just been literally life-changing.
Excellent. So the topic that we're kind of talking about today is right up your alley, because you do your animal sessions remotely, and I know at least one of the people you've done work with their animals, and so I'm aware of the animals themselves as well. So I know that they have seen big changes and have come back to you for more and more. So as far as the work being done at a distance, what's your concept? What's your idea about that sort of work? As a lot of people say healing should be hands-on,
right?
And what you're doing is not hands-on. It's
right
at a distance. So
right,
can you tap into that a little bit?
That's something that was a struggle for me when I first started hearing about distance. And I accepted distance Reiki from people a few times. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense. As you just said, hands on. Because I know in the center of the palm is a really major chakra point, and that's where Reiki practitioners send their energy from. But as I took training, as I began to explore, as I began to get distance Reiki for myself, here's how I have interpreted this. We all know what the sun looks like and feels like. We can't touch it. We can't touch the rays. We can't feel the sunshine, but we can see the results. We can see the rays of sun coming through. We can see the results with plants growing and so forth. That's much like Reiki. I mean, Reiki is just universal energy. It's the Japanese term that Indians and many others use for chi. It's Rei as the higher power and chi. So all you're doing is channeling that universal energy. And the way I look at it is we have diffused sun. Like right now, I'm looking at a diffused sunlight through the window. But what happens if you take a magnifying glass or a prism to that diffused light? It gets more and more focused. And when you are a Reiki practitioner, or really probably other modalities as well, you are that lens. And you are that one who is focusing, channeling that energy into a focal point. So when I'm doing a session with an animal, I have set up all the qualifications that I need to be able to connect with that animal. So I am focusing my energy, I am focusing through me, the universal energy, onto that target to affect change. And as with the sunshine, you can't tell it what to do. I can't tell the energy what to do. I can't tell the animal what to do, but I can focus. And I think of it as sort of rotor, I'm kind of clearing out the pipes that might be blocking the animal's own energy. So that's my own interpretation. Others might see it or feel it differently, but that's what happens to me when I'm doing a session. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Because, I was thinking when John asked the question, I always formulate my own answers and then listen curiously to yours. And I was thinking, well, when we've talked about this a lot, when we break it down, we're all broken down energy, right? We just are. And so it would make sense that you'd be able to tap into whatever you needed to. But I love the way that you created this focus of kind of fine tuning and laser focusing the universal energy onto or into or around an animal.
All of the above.
All of the above. All right. Which, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's been interesting, the more I've been practicing, it's been interesting the result in my hands, because I have my own little routine that I use to get into the zone and to get connected with the animal. But now, even just now, I have so sensitized my system, like I just activated Reiki. So there you go. It's, what happens when you clap a lot or really hard and you stop and you have that like a pulsing tingle in your palms? That's exactly what it feels like with no clapping or slapping going on. So it's almost on a hair trigger now with intention that I can activate the energy. And that's been kind of fun. It's like my cat comes up for pets and I go, oh, there it goes.
So Holly, the hold on for a second. There seems to be an interesting thing going on here. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So Holly, there's I love the analogy of the sun, because it's yes, everyone comprehends, everyone knows. Do you believe that it's the understanding that it's happening that circumnavigates the distance? Or that's the wrong word, I know, but and I'm talking to Holly, so I shouldn't mess up words. But
because I am also the word doctor. I know what you're getting at, and it's, of course, belief is a part of it. I've had conversations with people. It's like, that can't work. You're not touching anything. Or, as I said, with my own doubts, like before I began this work, faith and trust and confidence has a great deal to do with the practice of distance Reiki. But after the first couple of sessions that I did in practice when I was still in training and hearing results, it's like, oh my goodness, this stuff really works. And I started to feel it within me. I could feel the energy flowing within me. And I know you experienced this quite a bit with the work that you had done.
Yeah, I find it interesting because it's, to me, the intention is a huge part. But I've also had the experiences where I was working with someone and literally listened to our higher selves talking, right? And though the conscious self was not aware, the person that I was looking at was not aware. The person, the higher consciousnesses were, and they were having an absolute conversation. And then a week later, the person came back and it had been healed. And she said, "What did you do to me?" I didn't do anything to you. What are you talking about? right. But I find it interesting because I think a lot of the work that you're doing is on a higher plane.
Yeah, very much so.
And on that higher plane, there is no space or time, in my opinion.
That's exactly it. And that's something that I knew and believed and understood before I ever began training for this. And so communication with the animal is certainly a part of this process. It's not what I focus on. I'm not an animal communicator. There are people far better at that than I am. But sometimes words, sometimes images, sometimes sensations, all that knowing that I get from the animal absolutely transcends space and time. There isn't space and time, as we all know even the quantum physicists and everybody else is proving the power of energy with intent and focus, and that changes can be made to something that has been focused upon, if that makes sense. And in my case, I'm focusing upon this animal that I'm making a connection with and intending their very best and highest good. And that's what it takes. Now, of course, if I don't like the term owner, if a pet parent says, I'm concerned about this, and we can talk about a couple of the examples that I've had, then that it might be what I'd focus upon and give like an extra jolt of energy. But the animal knows how to use the energy in its own eternal wisdom.
Well, that makes perfect sense. I'm fascinated. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the healings that you've done and some of the results that you've had?
It's been so fun. A few of them that had come to mind when I was thinking about this. The first really powerful one was that mutual friend of ours who has 6 dogs, I believe, currently. She had a beautiful border collie, and this beautiful beast was 16 years old and really struggling with age-related illnesses and so forth. And she had some kind of either a brain injury or a stroke or something, and she walked like this. She walked kind of lopsided, and she'd sort of go in circles. So our friend contacted me and asked if I could send Reiki to this dog. And we connected right off the bat. I felt her personality. I felt her discomfort, but not pain. I felt her a little bit of confusion, like, I don't really know what's going on here. And I knew that I was connecting with this dog who I had never met in real life, and spent more time on her spine and like the base of her skull and her brain than I did on other parts. And I should, a little footnote here, people who understand Reiki know that there is a process usually going down the chakras or going up the chakras, depending on what's needed, the energy centers in the body. So I focused on where I felt from this dog needed the most focus. And I, as usual, sent my report back to the dog's owner. And she promised that she'd just keep an eye out and give me any feedback. Well, the next morning, she emailed me and she said, I can't believe this. She had this dog outside, and the neighbor said, what happened to this dog? What happened? She's upright. She was not walking in, so she's walking straight. Her head was upright. She had a spring in her step. She got a little puppyhood back in there. And when our friend contacted me, I literally cried. I was so excited about having been able to facilitate helping this beautiful dog, this elderly dog. And I worked with this dog 2 or 3 more times, because often when there's something either intense or chronic, like when you go to the doctor, one time isn't going to help. So I worked with her a few more times, and she was doing just beautifully until her end came. A few months later, it was definitely time for her to leave, and she left. So it was so emotional for me to be able to help give her a peaceful send-off. Another one that I'm really fond of, because I'm Facebook friends with this woman who has 3 or 4 cats, I've lost track now. And one of them was not a new rescue to her household, but she was having a lot of trouble adjusting, was kind of skittish, and she was very sensitive to touch. She didn't want to be petted much. And so I worked with this cat and just kept telling her how safe she is. You're in a household where you're safe. You're in a household where you're loved. You're going to keep getting more and more love. And maybe you could try letting a little bit of it in. And did the usual Reiki session that I do, the energy work. And I heard from this woman 2 days later that she was allowing pets, and she was not jumping when one of the other cats came in the room. Just a huge difference. She could not believe the difference in her personality, and it has lasted. So that was a big thrill.
That's a great story, especially for people who don't know how wonderful cats can be.
Yes, thank you, Tamara.
You're
I
welcome.
had another one noted. Oh, yeah, the other big one. The very, very dear friend of mine that I help with her animals because she has quite the brood and she has a back injury. And this beautiful old kitty, and I know I can say his name because she's a friend and she doesn't mind. Mr. Chips was this beautiful old kitty, and he was starting to fade away. So I kept giving him Reiki every time I went over there. In this case, hands on, because he's a neighbor. And I knew his end was coming. So I just focused on peace. I focused on helping his body be relaxed and peaceful. And anytime I approached him, he would just flop over. It's like, bring it on. He loved Reiki, loved it, as my cats do. And the last time that I worked with him was about 2 weeks before he passed. And he looked in my eyes and I looked in his, and I said, okay, I understand. And so I did a similar thing to the dog. I just said, let your body be at peace, let your spirit be at peace, and all is well. Sent him a great deal of peaceful energy, and he passed very peacefully in his sleep about 2 weeks later. And then my own cats, not to keep rambling, but I love this. I had my last cat who died a year ago, had oral cancer. And once I discovered this and knew she must be in pain, I gave her Reiki every day, and she would just lie there and purr. She just loved it. So animals are so much more in tune with the energetic and spiritual world than we are. I mean, that's how they survive in the wild. That's how animals have lived for thousands of years, as long as there have been animals. We talk about ley lines that birds follow to go where they need to. Animals just know. So it's very easy for them to absorb this energy and to understand it. And I very rarely have an animal say, I don't know what this is. What are you doing? It's just a joy.
That's so beautiful.
It sounds like you found your calling.
Oh, the passion there is just palpable. I love it.
Yeah. Love my critters.
And I'm sure the critters love you too.
That's right.
It leads me into a whole bunch of jokes I'm not going to do. It's so cool. And one of the things two things I want to add. One, in dealing with the customer, I know that you talk to the pet parent first.
Right.
So you come to know them first. Do you feel that you're able to connect more easily with their pet through the consciousness of their owner?
That's why I do it. And it's not something I was trained to do. It's something I just knew was right for me.
Right.
When I get on a quick phone call with a pet parent, which is the term I just love, by connecting with their energy, I am secondhand connecting with the animal's energy. Sure. And if there are more than one in the household, with all of them. So it's, yes, partly it's interpersonal to hear from that person what they intend for their pet. And then partly just energetically.
Right. Do you find that a lot of times the healing that you're giving to, this is going to sound very weird, but that the pet will do things in healing for the parent? In other words, you know what I'm saying?
I absolutely know.
Okay.
And this is something in all the training that I had, this is something that I found probably most fascinating. And I've only experienced it a little bit directly so far, where an animal is acting as the healer in the household. There are cases, for instance, one that I experienced directly, where an animal was indicating all kinds of stress responses. And it turned out that there was so much chaos in the household among the people. This cat was mediating. This cat was trying to fix it. And so the conversation that I had with this cat was, does that need to be your job? You can choose a different job. And there again, it was a very emotional response from the animal, but also from the humans within a few days, that things had calmed down with the pet. And I am honest. I mean, if you're hiring me to work with an animal, you're going to get honesty. I mean, to me, that's just morals, it's ethics. I'm not going to hold back from the human what I hear, what I think. And I explained very kindly that if they could work out some of the chaos in the household, the animals would be more at peace as well. And she really got it. She really understood. It's not a situation that I was able to follow up with, but exactly to what you're asking about, it goes both ways. The human will influence the animal by their behavior, and the animal in turn can influence the human by theirs, by being a caretaker.
Well, that makes perfect sense. The second question I had was, it seemed like a couple of the pets that you dealt with were on the way out, or past, and do you find that you're doing a lot of that work at that time? Are you kind of becoming that person helping them transition?
I've heard of that with humans, a death doula. And that would be interesting. I don't know if my emotions could handle it. The few that I've worked on in that sense have been okay. Both of these situations, the main two situations that I just related, were animals that I knew or knew the parents. I don't know if I could handle doing that exclusively, because it is emotional. But I suppose, as with physicians, once you develop a level of objectivity towards those emotional situations, and it would be interesting to try, because I'm so connected with animals that I just want them to be happy. And if I can facilitate their leaving, like I said, death doula or death midwife, great. I would rather help them live a happy life, though.
So how do people find you, and how do they say, hey, Holly, my pet needs some help? How do they know you're the person? How do you get your message out there to people who need you?
Big time social media. Look me up on Facebook as Light Seeds by Holly, or Light Seeds Reiki for Animals, because as long as you use that term, Light Seeds, LIGHT seeds, it'll show up. And my website is lightseedsbyholly.com. And I have a variety of options on there, a couple of bonuses for people who choose to purchase a package. As I said earlier, when there's an animal that has a chronic situation, or one that might be leaving their body or whatever, one session's just not going to fix it, like with physical therapy. And so I've offered a discount for package deals to help pet parents make a better decision about treatment. And I do want to add a footnote here that I haven't brought up yet, and it's something that's really important for me to say, that Reiki or any other healing for your pet is not a substitute for medical treatment. That shouldn't need to be said, but I need to say it. That's always go to your vet first. But Reiki will supplement the vet, will help their treatments work more efficiently, and of course will support the deeper soul of the pet. So when people want to book a session, I have a what's all about. I have instructions for what I need to be able to do that, and they can just look on the website and look me up, and I would love to work with more pets.
And I'll make sure I put all that information in the show notes and all that stuff. And I literally know some of the people that you've worked with. So it's like, and I've of course, talking to you, Holly, hear the results and the excitement in your voice every time you work with somebody. Like I said, I've worked with Holly for so long. Holly literally is the sister that I've claimed. I've got real sisters and I've got a Holly.
Yeah, exactly.
I talk to Holly more than I talk to my real sisters. So,
sorry, sisters.
With the exception of maybe my sister Patty.
Who's an avid listener. So
my friend, Patty.
Right, yeah, we love Patty. Yeah.
Patty's his favorite, I'm sure.
It's fun. It's funny you say that, because when I was 12 years old, she bought me an Instamatic camera. And to me, a camera was an expensive gift. And I told all my brothers and sisters that Patty was my favorite sister. And still to this day, it is something that it's a story that goes around the family that Patty is my favorite sister.
I love her too.
So great. I have a question. You mentioned early
Sure.
on that there are people who are better communicators, animal communicators. So tell our listeners and me, what is the difference then between someone who communicates with the animals as opposed to doing Reiki? What's the difference, and do they overlap?
Oh yeah. We're talking right now. It's a conversation. That's all it is. If I bring Reiki into it and I'm doing healing with you, that's on the energetic spiritual level. So communicators have the distinct ability to communicate with animals. There's no healing. Of course, unless you do it combined, and many people do. Many people are communicators who also offer energy healing. That's something that's a skill that might develop more in me. It's my focus, as they say, is helping critters get better and live happy lives. So my focus is not on the communication. But that's the difference. It's, if you are a healer, you're bringing the healing into the picture. If you're a communicator, that's not less than, it's just part of the picture.
Right. And so you're not necessarily getting words, but you definitely are communicating in a way that you're feeling their energy, and you said personality and what's
and I have got
for them.
words. I mean, the animal's going to communicate in their own way, and animals usually communicate with thoughts and feelings, ideas, which is my own way of getting information. So for me, it works beautifully. But I've had a couple of animals that, like, in fact, there was a very excitable dog. I wanted to meet this dog because it was like, hi, how are you? I want to talk to you. And she was so excited. She was so bouncy. And I heard words. That's just how the energy came into my being.
Okay.
So it's different with every animal.
Cool.
Do you find the communication and healing, though they are two different modalities, sometimes a lot of healing can be done through communication as well?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
A dog could be saying, hey, stop, putting that on my bed.
Right.
Absolutely. That's communication too, right? And
that there's absolutely, without doubt, healing going on there, because it's just as I said with Tamara a moment ago, we're communicating. Are we really? We're speaking to each other, but are we really communicating? And that's what the animal communicators are so good at. They heal relationships. They can heal an animal's physicality by saying, this food is making me sick, or I don't like that color, whatever it might be. It's just a different thing.
Mm-hmm. My cats definitely communicate to me when I've stayed away too long.
As do mine.
My dog communicated to me right after I had him fixed. He wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't talk to me for a week. I swear to God. I came home and he's like lying there on the floor and he's like,
nope.
You were shunned.
I was shunned. He's like,
how could you like it if I did that to you?
Yeah, how could you do that to another guy? And then when I got married, my dog was he was a Rottweiler, and when I got him, he was 2 weeks old. So I raised him with bottle feeding and carried him in my pocket, and he was my baby. And then I was directing the Tennessee Renaissance Festival, and my wife was in Texas selling her jewelry, and I sent the dog with her to Texas. And Tennessee ended, and I drove to Texas, and I got there, and my wife wasn't home. I walked in the trailer, and the dog was there, and the dog looked over at me after not seeing me for like 6 weeks. He looks over at me and goes, "Oh, hey." and I had a communication then. I heard was, "Oh crap, Dad's back." That's what I heard. He totally when she came into our lives, he totally gave me up for her.
Oh,
it was like, no, he didn't. Really,
traitor.
He
That's why
love.
People who dismiss animals as being lesser beings or being objects or tools or playthings, it hurts my spirit because they are as sentient and as worthy of living a good life as humans. It's a different species. And
Right.
that's something I've always felt and known. But doing this work, it's just really brought it home to me.
Right. When my son, my ex-wife lives with, and my son lives there half the time, and I would go to pick him up there, and they have an old dog there named Amina, and I had got that dog trained that when I would show up, the dog would come over and literally lean her body against my legs, and I would lean down and I'd scratch her butt and her chest at the same time, which would get her just like like really. And we got a young puppy for that, for him to have another dog around. And when Amina passed, like within a week of Amina passed, I would show up at the house, and Sabine, the puppy, would come over and lean against my legs for the exact same thing the other dog was getting.
Oh,
And it was like Amina had said, "Hey, Sabine, if you lean against his legs, he'll do this to you." Right. Like
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously had some sort of communication there. So I find that it's
Absolutely.
So, well, this has been awesome. This has
been fun. Thank you for letting me express my passion.
oh, thanks for sharing it. It was so beautiful.
So Tamara, you want to kick us out of this thing, and then we'll chat afterwards, Holly. Hold on.
Sure thing. Everyone, thank you so much for being here and listening, and be sure to reach out to Holly if you need some healing for your pet, as a pet parent, not an owner. And remember to let us know what you think and ask your questions, and please share our podcast with your friends who are interested in these kinds of conversations, and give us a good rating so that more people can find us. Thank you for being here. We are so grateful, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.